Hello, everybody. Welcome to 2019. I cannot believe it. It is here. It is 2019. It is January 17th, already over halfway through the first month of 2019, which is insane. And it is our first Teal Talk. I've been so excited to come back to you guys in this new year and see how everyone is doing and chat it up. And I'm thrilled to have Kate All here from Simple Pen Media. She is incredible. She travels the conference circuit talking all about Pinterest. Kate, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm the owner and founder of Simple Pen Media, which is a Pinterest management company. We primarily focus on serving our clients so they can really focus back on their business instead of thinking about Pinterest. But I also have a podcast too, and that's really for people who can't afford to hire us at this time, but they really want to figure out Pinterest in a really simple, actionable way. And that's how I teach. I need very drilled down, give me 3 points, tell me what to do. And so I really try to teach in that way through the podcast, through blog posts, and then through the Facebook group that we have to really provide people support, because I love Pinterest. I really do think it's a super valuable platform, and it's the only platform that we work with. So if you ask me anything about Instagram or Facebook, glassy-eyed, I have no idea. So that is a little synopsis about me.
Fantastic. Give us a little bit. Where can we find your podcast?
So you can find it on really anywhere. So iTunes, Stitcher, it's just the Simple Pen Podcast. And we have probably only 130 episodes now. And we just stick to Pinterest. So if you're looking for how to keyword on Pinterest, understanding Pinterest analytics, how to do Pinterest for e-commerce, it's all there. And we're continuing to build on that based on how the platform is shifting and what are we seeing people need. So a lot of people have told me it's on Overcast too, and that they're finding that that's a really good player as well, because iTunes sucks these days. So anyway, you can find it there. And then on the blog too, at simplepenmedia.com, you can see a whole list of podcasts, and every podcast is actually converted into a blog post. So if you are a reader and you are not a podcast listener, it's actually written into a post, not a transcription. So you can easily get the information there, even if you don't listen to the podcast.
Fantastic. And my awesome team just posted it in the comments, so we've got it there. Everyone welcoming Kate. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for sharing that information on that. If you just tuned in, we're so glad to have you. And can Kate answer Tailwind questions? That's what Tara Jacobson. We do have some Tailwind questions. And if you have Tailwind questions, please throw them in there. Any questions for Kate or myself? Kate is the founder of Simple Pen Media. We're talking Pinterest today, and we are here to answer your questions and talk through all things Pinterest. So tell me a little bit about Simple Pen Media and how it started, and then what services you offer to people.
Yeah, so we started in 2014, actually January of 2014. So this is our 5-year anniversary, which is pretty crazy.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I started it as a way to my family was super poor. We were living on food stamps, and I needed to find a way to actually generate some extra income. And I had been working with another blogger. I'd been doing Facebook and Pinterest for her. So I knew the social media world. And about that time was when Facebook had their first great algorithm shift for business pages. And so everybody lost their traffic and really migrated over to Pinterest as a great traffic source. One of the biggest things that they were struggling with was, how do I use Pinterest personally and make that leap into how I use it for my business? And that seemed to be very tough for people. And so I really went to a couple of people and said, well, let me practice managing your Pinterest account, see how it works. And I said, if this totally bombs, let's just never talk about it again. We'll just kind of walk away and say it doesn't work. But actually it ended up working, and 4 clients turned into 8, now we have 130 clients that we work with. And we primarily have 3 services of management that we offer for people depending on where they're at. And if you go to the website, you can see the services drop down and there, but we also help people who want deep dives into what's happening in their analytics, because Pinterest and Google Analytics and what you find in Google Analytics is gold. It literally tells you a great story about where the Pinterest user is entering your site and what they love. So we offer that service, cleanup, and then promoted pins too. That has been something that people have been asking us about a ton. So promoted pins management is huge. And it's, that's a quick condensed, 2014, 2019, right? But there's been a lot of learning lessons along the way. And one of the things we pride ourselves on is being intense with education on Pinterest. We run weekly education reports for our team. What is Pinterest talking about? Where are they moving? Where are they going? How to best fit within the algorithm, but not in a gamey way to do something that's very short-sighted and not sustainable. We look for how can we implement a strategy that's sustainable for the long term.
And we love hearing that. That is exactly what we do here at Mediavine. We always are, we never want to up someone's revenue to a place where they're going to destroy their user experience and not have that sustainability for their business, because it's all about user experience. Everything that we promote, and it's everything that you promote, it needs to be sustainable and make your user happy.
Yeah, definitely. Especially the Pinterest user, you know, when they're coming over from Pinterest to your site, they are very quick to judge a site super fast. And if they don't like it or they don't like their experience, they leave very quickly, which is why we see that bounce rate pretty high from Pinterest. But it puts it back on us as a content creator to say, how do I make this an enjoyable experience that serves this person who's looking for the answer to the problem that they have? And I love that part about Pinterest, because you get these users who are really searching, because Pinterest is a search and discovery platform. So they're looking for these ideas, they're gathering because they want to make informed decisions on, you know, activities or life methods or products. And your content provides that. And that's what I love about Pinterest too, is that their ecosystem thrives on content creators. Facebook doesn't, and Instagram really doesn't, but Pinterest needs your content to serve their user base. And so the better we can get at that, the better our traffic grows, the better our ad revenue.
Absolutely. Very true. We want to keep them on the site. Okay, so we've got some questions already filing in. Tara Jacobson, I have a question about tailwind looping. She says, I have a huge marketing loop that is going to take over 5 years to get through. So obviously I have to break it up and stop adding to it, which she's doing now. Mm-hmm. Some things she thought she could do. 1, make more targeted subloops. So instead of all marketing, SEO marketing, and Pinterest marketing, and direct sales marketing. So breaking it down into those categories. She said, break it up by the oldest ones I added, which are probably not getting any love right now because I keep adding new ones, and have marketing 1 loop, marketing 2 loop, etc. She says, any tips? I know I might get some repeat pins changing them to new loops, but I can monitor that in my account.
Okay, so number one, I'm going to say we've been getting questions like this quite a bit because people are still confused about how to effectively use Smart Loop. So number one, we have a course coming out in 2 weeks, and that's not like a plug for that, but it's really like, this is a thing that we see people keep coming to us. So we finally laid out a whole strategy and system in there. Number 2, I'll say one of the cautions I would say with Smart Loop is the cautions we've had with previous looping kind of programs is that when we set these things and they can kind of go on auto, what we're losing is this connection with what's working and not working. So however you set up your loop, I would caution you on don't do too many. Duplicate are certainly okay, but you want to make sure it's to different boards. If you're just looping to group boards all the time, then what you forget is you forget your personal boards and the interaction that can happen on there, and the opportunity that Pinterest has to, you know, let's say somebody in the smart feed clicks on something with your personal board, then they might be served up more content from a personal board. So all that to be said, because there's a lot of nitty gritty and loops in that detail that I probably can't answer to, but I'll just say this, be very slender in it at first, and then build on it as you see it's working based on the pins and what clicks they're getting. Because it's really easy to just fill it, but then not go back to Google Analytics and say, okay, are people actually clicking on this particular pin? How long are they sticking around? And is it something I need to share even more? So that's kind of the most in-depth I can speak to looping. Also, because with our services here at Simple Pin, what we found is that a hand-curated, hand-selected pin, especially for our clients, does better because we're constantly watching the interaction. I will say, obviously, as a solo business owner who's trying to save time, looping is perfectly appropriate to use, and it's a fantastic tool. Just be cautious and set time limits for when you're going to check it, and don't do too much, because we also learned that looping, when you add too many, 5 years out or whatever, tailwind slows down considerably. And it's really hard to then schedule, and it feels very glitchy a little bit. So hopefully that answered at least the top level of the question without going into the weeds of what we can kind of solve in the course piece.
So, so Simple Pin Media has a course coming out is pretty much the number one thing I took from that. So definitely and that's dropping in 2 weeks, Kate?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Crossing fingers.
Excellent. Okay. We will all cross our fingers because it sounds like that is something that is hitting big time and really resonating with our audience.
It is. And Smart Loop is very unique to each person too. Like how much evergreen content you have. If you have heavy seasonal content, you're going to want to be touching base with your loops to go back to your old content. Like let's say we're going into Valentine's Day right now. Go back to last year's Valentine's Day content, really update it, look at it, add new links, and then make a Valentine's Day loop to certain things. But again, don't just do group boards. Also do your personal boards and maybe add some personal boards if you need to.
Fantastic. Okay, we've got questions coming in fast and furious. So I'm going to start hitting you hard.
Okay.
I want to make sure I'm not sure I'm saying this right. So please forgive me, Mr. Baluli. Baysart Baluli says, my first question to Kate, will Pinterest be like Facebook with the strategy pay to play with paying campaigns and traffic will be dead like on Facebook? Is that going to happen?
Not like Facebook, I would say. And I think that I've answered this question a lot in my Facebook group, quite a bit. There's always that fear. And one of the things I always tell people is Facebook is a totally different type of platform that is not, again, it's not dependent on your content and continuing to build that ecosystem in. They are definitely looking to potentially go public. And so they have to be able to raise the funds for that, and Promoted Pins is their advertising. It's not going to be like Facebook. That's my prediction, at least. And all the things we've seen over the years, Pinterest still brings a considerable amount of traffic because their users find things valuable. That's the biggest thing, is if we're still creating great content and delivering value, I don't anticipate we'll see this crash like we did with Facebook.
Excellent. So there are 3 parts to this question. Number 2, these days people see a drop in traffic in the start of the year. Did something change in the Pinterest algorithm, or it's just normal for this time of year?
It's normal for this time of year. Definitely, if you're the high season we see in traffic, looking at numbers just overall, is between August and mid-January. It tends to fall really deep mid-February and then go into kind of a sleeper state with most people's traffic, and with little blips here and there. But that's really normal. It's what we've seen for the last 6 or 7 years on Pinterest. Their pattern really doesn't change.
Excellent. Okay. Now, 3rd part, will Simple Pen Media continue with videos about Pinterest in 2019 like you were doing in 2018?
Yes, we'll do more videos for sure. So we'll be doing more lives and more training in 2019 for sure.
Okay, fantastic. So you've made him very happy, and we're glad about that. We're here to make everyone happy. All right. Yeah. Tara Jacobson had another question. Let's see this. She wants to get her baby site on Mediavine too. It has one post that is going nuts on Pinterest from 2 different pins. She's now over 10,000, but 8,000 of that is on one post. Okay. So if you have one great post that Pinterest loves, how can you get them to love your other related posts? My post is about getting your Alzheimer's mother to take showers.
Very interesting. Well, congratulations. That's amazing. Since it's doing really well, I would add a couple different images for it as well, since it's already doing pretty good. So the more images you have for one particular post, that's great. So I would say that's just a maximization tip. It is hard to get Pinterest to love your other content. We do see this quite often, that something will really just take off and that the other stuff will really fall below. So my tip is to keep creating content that's very similar and has very similar keywords, and so that you can rank for Alzheimer's, and do a search on Pinterest to see what it is the terms are that this pin is ranking for, to see if you can see it high in a particular search. Use those keywords in the other new content that you're creating. That's probably the best chance. And keep pinning. That's a big one.
Keep pinning is just keep pinning, and we can have that song from Finding You. Thank you. Yes, perfect.
Totally.
Tara Jacobs, I'm going to be singing that for the rest of the day. Yes. And that is yet another thing that I did to myself. Congratulations, everyone. Just keep pinning.
Yes.
Tara Jacobson, what kinds of affiliate pins work the best? Link to affiliate post or straight to the affiliate products?
No, affiliate post. We've had people who have really tried the A/B test of linking directly to affiliate products. You can definitely do it. And I recommend that if you are any type of content creator that has products that you talk about quite a bit, you can create a board that talks about like my favorite products and link them there. You can share that board link in an email list or on other social channels. That's definitely a great way to do it. But the key to that is you've already built the relationship and told them about the product. Pinterest users are cold buyers. They're not quite ready to buy. They're ready to gather before they make a buying decision 3 to 6 months later. So if I'm going to gather up all the lights I want for my bathroom, I'm going to choose 50 different lights and I want to see the light up close and then I want to see the light in its environment so I can kind of picture what that will look like for me. So if you have a blog post that outlines the 10 best modern farmhouse bathroom lights, I'm going to read through it and I'm going to look at a lot of these images and I'm more likely to click on your affiliate link there than I am to click on your affiliate link on Pinterest. So yes to both, but more heavily weighted on a blog post.
Fantastic. Excellent. More context, more content, more information and value for that reader. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So Karen Locke, what makes the perfect viral pin?
The $1 million question. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we haven't really seen a particular formula. Like we can go, this works, this works, this works, right? But I'm going to give you kind of like the standards here. So when we look at people who are getting a lot of traffic from Pinterest, what we know are a couple of things. One is they have a full description, 1 to 2 sentences that have keywords in them that somebody was searching and the person who pinned it got pinned and either their audience saw a lot of it and then it kind of spiraled from there. So it's not necessarily the image right off the bat, but it's really usually search related. Like somebody was looking for something, found it useful, and then it spidered out from there. What you'll also notice too is that sometimes these viral pins live on boards that don't have a lot of followers, or maybe they're just a regular person and not a business user. Some of this in the past, we could link to the fact that maybe Google had picked up that board or that pin. So when somebody on Google was searching something, the pin was indexed. So keywords are definitely going to be the number one key to a viral pin. The other thing is going to be an image. So the image, is it clear? Like, can I see it? You know, what's in there? If it's a product, can I see what the product is? Or does it have a really good text overlay? The thing I will say about this though, is what we hear over and over from people is that sometimes their ugliest pins are actually the ones that go viral. So what this continues to tell us is that it's back to the keywords so that your descriptions are complete. Again, like I said, 1 to 2 complete sentences, don't keyword stuff. And some people are seeing really good success with hashtags. So hashtags have had a couple different iterations over the last year and a half that Pinterest has introduced them. So now what we see in a lot of their guidelines is 1 to 2. The really big thing that they caution is make sure the hashtag is very closely related. So if it's a post about cats, do not put a hashtag about dogs because you're trying to attract a dog owner into being a cat owner, which is kind of a little bit impossible anyway. So what you would want to do is keep it very clean, hashtag cat or hashtag cat tips or something like that. But just keep it to about 2. And that could also be a way that your pin gets picked up. So all that to say, there isn't a hard and fast viral formula, but keywords matter the most.
Keywords matter the most. Love that. Okay. Tara Jacobson wanted to say, such good advice. Thank you. Love the check the keywords. Very smart. Okay. Let us go back into some of these other questions because we have quite a few already. Brenda Thompson, I'm curious how people follow you, like what makes them follow you versus just repinning the pen that they liked. I know it has changed over the years, so I wonder how much the number of followers actually matters and how is the monthly viewer stat determined?
Okay, 2 really good things here. So I'll tackle follower and then monthly viewers. So if I happen to forget it, you pull me back into that.
You got it.
follower number, what's really interesting about Pinterest users is that they don't go there to follow somebody. You go to Instagram and you go to follow an influencer and you go to follow their life, right? When we go to Pinterest, the joke is that it's the introvert's platform. So we're going to curate these ideas for a life that we want to live or dream about. So the pull to follow Target or Nordstrom or Home Depot or whatever, these big brands or even these big influencers is not as big of a draw. In fact, I've heard several times from Pinterest users that they don't even know how to follow somebody or they're not compelled to follow somebody. So what this tells us is that the follower numbers are not as important of a metric as your traffic numbers, your clicks. So what you want to focus on is you definitely want to do a call to action for your audience. So let them know on Instagram or Facebook or even on your email list or your blog, hey, come follow me on Pinterest. But the bulk of the interaction you'll see in your pins are for those people who have interests that match the type of content you're going to create. So back to that Alzheimer's pin. It went viral because somebody's searching the Alzheimer's realm of keywords that she has in there. These people are interested in tips for caring for people who have this disease. They're not necessarily interested in following her. They might come over and then choose to follow her in email and be a part of her tribe because there's a connection. So it's not necessary that they follow you on Pinterest. Obviously, call to action is important. That being said, we have not seen this direct correlation between the more followers you have, the more traffic you have, unless you're getting up over to the 150,000, 100,000 mark. Then we do start to see more engagement and traffic simply because their audience is bigger usually. And so they're sharing more content from their site onto the platform, which gives greater exposure. So with consideration to the health of the account. The reason being is that the monthly follower number is based on a few things. How many people see your pins, which is impressions, people who repin it, people who click it, people who visit your profile. It's not going to give you really any good data about how you're doing or not doing. We've seen monthly follower numbers drop and clicks go up. We've seen monthly followers go up and monthly viewer numbers, and then we've seen the clicks to the site go down. That being said, it's never proven to be a really solid metric for us. And we know it's also frustrating because some of your people, they do sponsored posts. And some of these companies are looking at that number. And it's hard because they're not educated really about what that number is. And so it's hard to have them kind of reel back and say, it's not important. So if the most important metrics you need to know really live in your Google Analytics, in your Tailwind Analytics, and then last checking Pinterest Analytics. But your gold standard is going to be Google.
Excellent. Love hearing that. We like Google Analytics ourselves here at Mediavine. It's a pretty important thing to be monitoring on a regular basis. Okay. Brenda Thompson, I use Tailwind primarily to schedule pins from content I find online or Pinterest and tribes. I tried SmartLoop, but it's expensive in my opinion. She said she was in the beta group. I already use CoSchedule, so ended up setting up my scheduling for pins there because it can essentially do the same thing. I can choose a seasonal group and set the number of pins that go there each day and week. Do you know anyone that has used this type of strategy with CoSchedule?
I don't actually. CoSchedule, for a lot of people, it feels a little bit clunky for them. We did have CoSchedule for other things, but we found actually that the interval pinning that's inside Tailwind, because you can schedule that out, several weeks, even a couple months, has been more effective and easier to do because it's just one fail swoop, one platform.
Excellent. All right, Debbie Mascari McKee. Thoughts on stolen pins? Is it worth reporting them? It seems every time I start reporting, I can spend hours doing so. Then not sure if it's coincidence, but after reporting, it seems like traffic drops for a while.
Yeah. So I'm going to say that the stolen pin stuff is really horrible. I think it's awful. I think it's something that Pinterest is working on. They can't disclose a lot of it, obviously, because it's a legal matter. So you're not going to hear a lot from them about it. But I do know they do know, and they are working on fixing that problem. That being said, I wouldn't spend a lot of time reporting simply because it is a big bulk of your time. If you're working on your business, especially if you have very limited time, I would not spend time on that. Simply because, okay, we know they're aware of the problem and we know that they're trying to get to the root of it. And that is equally as frustrating to them. In fact, I know I have stolen pins. There have been a couple of times when I click on the pin and it's been stolen by somebody who is on Fiverr. And so in that case, I go straight to Fiverr. I find them and I message them and say, you have stolen my pin, take it down or redirect. That's going to be a little bit more effective than, the blanket kind of black hole that you can go down in the strike and remove thing. So I understand it. In fact, I've had my whole entire site stolen, podcast and all, and it is frustrating. But there's only so much that you can do in this online world. And sometimes you just got to move it off and focus back on your content and your people and how you're serving that then, because that's what's going to rise above over time instead of all this other stuff.
Good advice, sage advice. Okay, Tara Jacobson. Tara, you are all over the place today. We're so glad you are loving it. She was like, I am gonna get Kate all. If it takes this entire hour, I am gonna make sure that I stump her. Okay, Tara.
I love it.
If you have a ton of great content yourself, should you still be sharing as many other people's pins?
No, there's no requirement of that. And Pinterest has said that in a series of lives. I know they did one with Mediavine too. They're very clear on saying, let your audience repin your content for you and repin, that be kind of the way that your content is shared or other people's content is shared. In fact, I say go more heavily on your own content, especially if you have a lot, because you can spread it out over your boards. You can spread it out over time. For me, I don't have a ton, but I can do probably 7 pins a day that is my own and just 3 of other people. And the reason I'm doing the other people is not because I think the algorithm will like me more, but it's just the reciprocity piece that I want my colleagues that I'm sharing their content to feel supported by me, in addition to curating really great boards that have really sound advice about Pinterest. So you'll never see me post anything about deleting pins or anything that feels very spammy or talks about impressions on Pinterest. We won't do that because that's not my philosophy, because I want the ability to say, go look at my Pinterest tips board. It's curated with a lot of good resources for you. I'm not the only one who's writing great content. Teal is writing great content, or some of my other colleagues. I want to share their stuff for that reason, but again, not because I think it's a trick to the algorithm.
Great. That's very effective. Okay, Karen Locke. She said, thank you. I think that was a thank you from a little bit earlier, but yes. You're welcome, Karen. Yes. Okay, thanks. What about text? Should it be in all caps? Should there be different styles of text?
That's such a great question. So what I always tell people about text is, can you read it on your phone? So a lot of people get the very scripty fonts and you can't read it. So I've used this a ton. So if you've heard me speak before, this is what I tell people. It's billboard advertising. You're driving down the freeway and you have 2 to 3 seconds to see what's on a billboard. Billboard advertisers know you have to read it really quick. So you don't see scripty fonts. You see pretty kind of the boring fonts, if we're going to be honest. Like you're going to see Arial, right? Which feels very it's boring, but people can see it. And this text should be very limited in text too, where it's not you don't have to go with your post title. Maybe do something interesting, 5 ingredient, like what makes your content stand out, pull that to the front as the text there. Again, in colorful, because the background of Pinterest is white. So you don't want to do white or black font because you're not grabbing the eye, but you want to say something that might hook them in, that might get them intrigued. We just did a podcast this morning that has a great story about how one pin changed this woman's business. I might put that on there, how one pin changed my business. And it's an actual story, so we want to make sure it's not like clickbait, but people are intrigued by what you write. Kind of intrigue them with that.
Okay, so great. So it almost sounds like something to where if you had, if you've got the ability to say one thing about what is the one thing that's going to pull people in, that's it. And say it concisely and articulately in a way that is going to make someone go, what was that? But like you said, not clickbaity, not how I lost 5,000 pounds in 2 days.
How I made like $1 million in 24 hours. And because one of the things you want to know is that people still kill time on Pinterest. They still scroll and they're looking for ideas. So your text on your image and your images, you're hooking in those people more than you are those keyword search people, because the keyword search people already know what they're looking for. They might, scan the image to go, oh, okay, this looks good. It resonates. But as somebody who's catching them in the drive-by, you're like, oh yeah, I want to click. Oh, that's interesting. What's that about? A good lesson actually for people to do, or a good action item, is to go look at Pinterest, spend time looking through the feed, and look on your phone. Don't look on desktop. And look at what the promoted pin advertisers are doing. And you can tell a promoted pin because right below it has a little sideways up arrow, and it might even say promoted. I know it's come and gone a couple times with that. Look at what they put on their pins. Sometimes they're putting little buttons that look like calls to action. Find out more, take the quiz. They're doing these things to get people to click. Take a lesson from them, because a lot of them, especially the big advertisers, are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on promoted pins. So they want to get their creatives right.
Yeah, absolutely. And why not benefit from their expenditures so you don't have to do the same?
That's right.
We don't all have our hundreds of thousands of dollars just lying around to do our research. So yeah, take their research.
No, we don't. Yes.
Okay. Tara says, thank you so much, Kate, All, and Jenny. I just have so many questions with a smiley face. You gals rock hard. Tara, we think you rock hard too.
Yes.
You rock harder. Okay. And Georgina Bummer just said she's always hated script fonts. Well, that's good. Then you don't have to fight against your natural inclination.
Use the font at the top.
Yeah, Brenda Thompson. So it's not the time to be really creative in terms of fonts. This is not our time.
No. And you could spend hours in front of Canva or PicMonkey moving your font and doing all this kind of stuff. Just go for Arial and move on.
That is the quote of the day. Go for Arial and move on. MoveOn.org. All right. Yeah. Brenda Thompson says, thanks for all the great info. I should clarify, the co-schedule strategy I use is just for pinning pins from my own vlog versus adding pins from others. So it essentially determines the schedule based on those parameters of seasonal time frame, number of pins per day or week. I use Tailwind for scheduling other people's content and adding my own pins to tribes for resharing.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, I would say for me, just because of the way that I think, I'm a singular person and I don't like spending money for two programs. So I would say you could even move that over to Tailwind and do a little less of other people's content and do a little more of your own and use the interval that kind of sets it out from there, because there isn't, again, like that huge push to where you have to go look for other people's content as much. You can definitely do less and do more of yours.
Fantastic. All right. So into some of my questions now, because people have slowed down a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about bios. Let's talk bio. So what is important? What needs to be in there? What kind of image needs to be on the bio? Tell us. What's the profile pic?
So looking at the whole top of the profile overall, you have that one big banner at the top. So that is pulled from a board and all the pins that are within a board. So what I suggest is you pull that to be your specific blog board or your business board, so that what's up there is really just your content, also matches your branding, it has your colors, all of that. Then when it goes into your picture, it's a 600 by 600. And I always tell people to go with your most current profile picture, because what a lot of people do is they'll change it on your site, they'll change it on Instagram or Facebook, and they kind of forget about Pinterest. And then you go in there and it's like 3 iterations ago of your profile picture. Go update it or change it to what's current across all social platforms. Some people ask me if they have to do their logo or their picture. I think it depends on how people identify your business. You definitely want to go with your logo if people know your logo over your face, especially if you are not the primary person in your business. So that's something for you to be thinking about. And then when it comes to your name, Pinterest used to add more characters to that so you could put keywords behind it, but they limited it now. I want to say it's 32 characters. So for me, I have Simple Pin Media / Pinterest Marketing. I used to be able to put Pinterest Marketing and Management because those were 2 keywords I wanted to be known for. But just pick one keyword that really describes what it is you do. If you're gluten-free, use that gluten-free recipes or gluten-free blog or however you want to say that. Then when it goes into your bio and your description, you don't want to start with something like, I'm Kate from Simple Pin Media. Hopefully I don't have that. Now that I think about it, I think we've removed that. But you want, because you're saying it in other areas. So if I do have that, ignore me over there.
What she says, not what she's doing. Don't try
totally right. So what we want to have there is you want to have some more keywords. So I might say like we help businesses and bloggers or businesses and content creators grow their business using Pinterest, or we're a Pinterest marketing and management company. We expand on the keywords, and then you can link to a bit.ly link. We've tested this a little bit. I can't say it's super effective because it doesn't hyperlink, but we at least tell them, hey, you get a free 2019 Pinterest planner, copy this link. So you can put that in there. But the biggest thing being, you basically want to tell them how you're going to serve them. So not really talking about your hobbies, not really talking about like, get straight to the point. I'm going to give you gluten-free, super healthy. I'm going to do keto. I'm going to do DIYs from, thrift stores. Whatever it is you're going to do has to go in that section.
Fantastic. Excellent. Okay, Georgina Bomer, I would love to hear your views about videos on Pinterest.
Ooh, this is really fun. So we actually had a big team meeting. We were talking about videos and carousel pins. So I'll start with videos. I think videos are increasing a ton. If you have not looked at your app yet, when you search something, what rises to the top is a whole string of videos at the top. And Pinterest is putting more and more importance on it. So up until this year, you really didn't have access to their native player, which is a square box. You were really only able to upload YouTube videos, which nobody was clicking on. They were super small and super ugly, right? I have a post on my site if your team wants to grab it. It's how to upload video to Pinterest. And it has all the specs in that and what you need to do step by step to upload. Because there are some steps. You need to have a valid credit card under promoted pins that will allow you to upload it organically. You don't have to pay for it. But there are some steps you want to make sure that your specs are right before you upload it. I would stick with under a minute. You could go a little bit over, but something that's super long form won't work. So really short. Sometimes those tasty style videos are good, but I actually saw a DIY one today pop up at the very top of my home feed when I logged into Pinterest. So yes, I think videos are really important. I would definitely upload them. Some people are seeing good views on them. We don't see a lot of clicks. Just it's very similar to what we see in any video platform. You kind of get the answer in the video. And if people want more information, they can definitely visit. I searched for something that was like a keto bagel or something, and somebody did have a video that was served up to me. I did visit their site because I wanted to read if there was anything I need to know or, instructions or anything like that. But video is definitely important. So yes, do it for sure. And if you have a lot of videos, what would be really smart is to do a separate Pinterest board that's like Simple Pin Media videos. And then you could put them there so that you could also send that board link to your audience and let them know in email or Instagram or Facebook, hey, I have all my videos in one place. If you want to see them, they're right here on Pinterest. And you could even kind of blow their minds too, because maybe they didn't know you could watch video on Pinterest. And they're like, that's crazy. So videos, yes, are good. And carousel pins is another thing that's new. That's where you can upload 5 images where people can swipe right or swipe left. I can't remember. Swipe left. I always get those wrong. You can swipe one direction and see more. So this is also a good way if you have a product or maybe even a product that you're an affiliate for that's on your website because you're going to convert higher over there. You can show multiple images of this product to where people can look through it first and then click over. So you upload all the images and then you link on Pinterest to that. But we're finding carousel pins are they're new and fun and working well. They were only a promoted pin feature for a while, but it's something new to test out. I think these are video and carousel pins are something really good where if you're in the like mundane of just pinning, throw a wrench into it and try these other ones.
Fantastic. Love it. Okay, Rose Ciders. I know that with the shift a few years ago, folks aren't looking at boards as much now that they are focusing more on search. Is it better to have board descriptions in full sentences, or is it better to use a list of keywords? I've heard mixed opinions on this, but would love to hear what you think.
So when we were at Pinterest, they were specifically talking about the keyword mapping of their algorithm, and they said they liked it to have it in full sentences. A couple of years ago, I probably would have said keywords, but once we were there in June, what we saw is that they were saying we want it in full sentences because it gives the board context. So the board name, the board description, and the pin description all allow the algorithm to know how to match up that content with who's ever searching. So I would definitely do full sentences, and don't use hashtags. They are not populated in search or anything in board descriptions or board names. It's just pin descriptions. So you don't have to worry about using them there.
Fantastic. No hashtags in your board descriptions. Keep them out. George wanted to say, your video board idea. Fantastic idea. Awesome. Rachel Scudder Ballard says, if you have a YouTube channel, would it be smart to make a shorter version of the video and link it back to YouTube? I have a cooking show style channel and not hands and pan stuff.
Yeah, definitely do that. Make a shorter version. But also here's another tip is that you can create a long pinnable image that looks like it has a play button in the middle, and, use the text on the top and bottom to talk about what it is that cooking show is going to be or topic. And even though it's not an actual play button, our mind still thinks to click and link that directly to your YouTube channel.
Fantastic. Is this just something we can make in Canva, or is there a specific place to go grab it? So yeah, do this.
No,
in Canva.
Just make it in Canva. Yeah. And grab even maybe a screenshot of your video with that play button, even from YouTube, and kind of put that in that middle of that pin.
Interesting. Love that idea. Great hack. Okay. So let's talk about how often we should be live pinning and how many pins a day we should be scheduling.
I love this question. So we do have a podcast that goes really in depth into manual versus scheduled. We have tested it multiple times at Pinterest. We have not found that it makes any difference. And we've heard that from Pinterest. They have approved schedulers that they endorse, and they do not show any favoritism over live or scheduled. So I say, for sake of time, 100% scheduled. I wouldn't put any stock into live pinning, with the exception of, if you are not a real native user of the platform, the only reason I would encourage you to live pin and play around with the platform is to really understand it and see what your users are seeing. So a lot of times I'll pick up Pinterest and I'll live pin things for me, simply because I find them useful, not because I think it's going to get my content seen more. I know there's been multiple theories. It kind of really stemmed from Facebook liking their scheduler over other people's scheduler or scheduling live, but we have not translated that over to Pinterest. We've tested it kind of like too much. There's no difference. So I would just say use the platform, be on it live to understand it, but schedule away and you're totally fine.
Fantastic. Rachel said, yes, thank you. Good to know.
You're welcome. I just saved you a bunch of time.
Okay. If I only have 15 minutes a day to dedicate to Pinterest, what should I focus on?
Oh man. Okay. So 15 minutes. So let's assume you would spend, that's tough. I feel like I need more, like 30.
Okay. Let's say 30.
Okay. Let's say 30. Okay. So I would spend the first 10 to 15 minutes looking at Google Analytics. What is it that's happening? Where are people clicking? What season of traffic am I in? Am I in a high season or a low season? What are the things where is the Pinterest traffic entering my site? I would grab those pins, and those might be the first things that I schedule. Then I move over into scheduling, and I might look at the published pins in Pinterest to see which ones maybe have the most repins. What pins got the best engagement? Look at Pin Inspector. Then I might schedule those. And then last, I might add some to tribes and maybe grab some from tribes to schedule. But that would really be what I would spend the bulk of my time on, going from Google Analytics, pinning those, Tailwind Analytics, pinning those, and then from there.
Okay, excellent. All right. Tara Jacobson said you can search YouTube play button transparent and then just drop that onto any of your images. It will have a faded checkered background where it is transparent.
Jackpot. Thank you.
Tara, you're on fire. All right. So how do you track success on Pinterest? What metrics should we pay attention to?
Yeah. So monthly viewer number is not on that list. Yes.
Right.
So yes, we're going to
say that.
Take that off. It's going to be the 3 things that we actually track. And this is really for us to see if we can spot trends. But this is clicks, repins, which is actually called saves. And then we do look at impressions. Man, I wish I could remember the name of the podcast, but we talk about things that indicators you can get from impressions and low numbers of clicks and why people are seeing your pin but not taking action. So we track those major things because we want to see what is actually happening as far as the account. Are we getting a high number of repins but no clicks? And an interesting thing to note is as clicks increase, we've seen repins decrease. So as you track those for your own site and the planner that we have a tracker list in there, track them once a month, go into Pinterest Analytics and look, okay, what are the numbers here? And then evaluate maybe every 6 months to see, okay, that was a weird trend. Why did this happen? Maybe I had a pin that went viral or got more interaction or seasonal. Those allow us to see what's actually kind of like the health of our account or spot any problems. But just know too, as far as growth wise, Pinterest is a slow burn. Like we're talking some months you're going to grow between 1% and 3%. For food, it's about 6 to 8% year over year. So you're not getting these drastic leaps. With the exception of if you're new, you might end up having some blips that are 29 or 30% growth simply because you've never been on the platform before. You're new, totally new, fresh content. So the numbers I would track would be clicks, saves, and impressions.
Fantastic. Okay, Lisa Sharp. Pinterest keeps saying 2 to 3, but longer pins, new pins are working better still for many of us. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so they do say 2 to 3. And the reason they did that was because there was the giraffe pins and they were going to cut those off and not distribute those in search. But the way they said it was they gave themselves a lot of license to be able to choose when and where kind of that happened. So we do see some that still work. So 2 to 3 is even 1,000 to 1,500 is 2 to 3. In fact, we're testing that even on the Simple Pin site. Instead of 600 by 900, 1,000 by 1,500. You're staying within that ratio. I just wouldn't go super long outside of that ratio. If you go, 600 by 900, like maybe no longer than 1,260. But if you're going to go longer than that, I guess I would say it does decrease your chance of being in search. But again, you might have one of those accounts that Pinterest is like, well, we're going to show your stuff because we just decided it's Tuesday and we might do that, right? So pay attention to what you're seeing and make notes. If those long pins are working for you, keep testing them, but test out the other ones too. Don't fully depend on those to keep riding your traffic train because you never know at any time they could really put the brakes on that and then you wouldn't have any other options.
Brenda Thompson was saying, yes, Lisa Sharp, I have not gone back to redo old pins to make them shorter. So I hope the answer is that it doesn't really matter as long as the numbers on traffic are still there.
Yes. Yeah. I would say when we, such is the nature of social media and things changing, I would definitely go back to your top 20 posts and have a backup image. That would be to be preemptive. Make a shorter image just so that you're prepared, at least with the ones that are bringing the most traffic. You just don't want to cut that off that traffic stream.
No, not overnight. Lisa Sharp is saying 600 by 1260 is working better for me than 2 to 3. She's been doing that most of the time.
That's good as long as you don't go over the 1260. It's when we get into like the 600 by 2000. That's what Pinterest has said. We're not a big fan of that.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Pinterest elephant in the room a little bit. Some people do not love Pinterest. They find it to be, actually a lot of people don't love Pinterest. And we see a lot of people throwing a lot of toys out of the pram to do with Pinterest. Why do you think that is? And how can people combat this Pinterest rage?
I love the way you described that. Okay, so one thing I would say is that as a business owner, and as this is me speaking business owner to business owner, and there are things we do not like to do in our business. So what I do is I take stock and stand back and say, do I have the bandwidth for it, to learn it and to invest in it? Or Should that time be spent somewhere else? Can I hire that out in order to focus on something else? So here's a great example of something that I did yesterday. So everybody's been telling me to focus on LinkedIn. I've just ignored it, right? Because I don't like LinkedIn. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me, but I definitely think it's a good place for us to go to get lead generation or potential more speaking gigs. That being said, I found a person who loves LinkedIn. It's like her passion, right? And we met and we talked, and I realized in that moment, I can hire her for the next 3 months to get this fully up and running. It's going to take her less time than it's going to take me to, one, understand it, and then two, pass it off to someone in my team. So if I really crunch the numbers, my hourly rate is worth more doing my podcast, doing content, doing things that will help LinkedIn to bring them in. That's the same with Pinterest. You need content. You need to be making content in order for Pinterest to work. So if it's not your jam and you don't like it, hire it out. That's not a pitch to say like, hire me. There's lots of people who are really great at doing it, but you want to look for somebody that you feel really confident in passing that off to where you're not going to have to follow up and you're not going to have to keep, trailing behind them, because your time is worth more as the owner of your business. And if you have never calculated your hourly rate, do it. Like, figure out how much you're making, how many hours you are working. That's roughly your hourly rate. And if you can pay somebody less than that to do it and you don't have to deal with it, don't. I don't want to deal with LinkedIn.
All right. Outsource. Yeah. Off my plate. Goodbye, Felicia. All right.
Because you're never going to love it.
No, you don't think so? You don't think that you can teach yourself to love something?
I think when it comes to a social media platform, I think it might be hard pressed to love it. I think you should really fall in love with writing on your site because that's your voice. I think that is one thing that you should definitely work at. But I would say when it comes to a social media and you actually doing it, I don't think that's necessary for any of the platforms, frankly.
Okay. Rachel Scudder Ballard was saying they stopped showing my long pins and I lost 80% of my Pinterest traffic. So it's been really painful for her.
I'm so sorry. That's the big reason you're preemptive and have some smaller pins.
Yep. That sounds like a way to go. And Brenda Thompson is agreeing with that, saying great advice to go redo those top 20 pins. Okay. So are group boards still useful, and how can we find new quality group boards to pin to?
Oh, this is such an interesting question. So group boards have changed a lot over the years, and Pinterest has said it didn't go the way they had intended them to be used. And I don't know if they said like, we're not going to show as much content to people. I know this has been like a rumor that's kind of been out there. But I will say this of what they did say, and what this tells me is in that thing we were talking about, the board name, board description, matching with the pin description. They were talking about a women's fashion board. And they said, if a user pins a pin from a women's fashion board, that gives the algorithm an indicator that they're interested in women's fashion. And the whole goal of the smart feed is to curate a feed based on your interests. And so Pinterest is going to share more pins from that board to that user because they want to serve them up more of what they want. So if you have a group board that's tons of contributors, tons of content, and you have somebody pin your pin from there, the likelihood that Pinterest is going to serve up another one of your pins is less, simply because there's more of other people's content to choose from. So what this signals to me is I actually want my personal boards to be the most powerful, because if Pinterest is going to show another pin to them, I want it to potentially be my pin or another pin that originates from what I own. So that being said, group boards can be effective if there's a small number of people who are on there and it has a very good board name and you're okay with Pinterest showing other people's content to a potential new user. We do see that some group boards work well if there's quality control, if the content stays on topic, if it's good, relevant content that Pinterest wants on their platform. But when you get into something that's like all things fitness and it has 20,000 people on there and 200,000 pins and tons of sections, I don't see that as a good place to spend my real estate on Pinterest with where I want my pins to go. Another thing is I see people relying so heavily on group boards that I would actually pull that back and rely more heavily on your personal boards. We make those shifts. We definitely see people get more engagement on their pins and their personal board. So aim to have about 70% your own boards, 30% other people's boards. The same with what you're pinning every day. You don't want to rely too heavily on the group boards.
That's actually what we say in terms of sponsored content with brands too, about 70-30 at the very minimal. Like you need to be having your own organic content versus sponsored posts. So it's a pretty heavily used ratio that I like. Okay, so we're almost out of time, which I cannot believe. This has flown by. You are so filled with information, and people are firing questions at you rapid fire, and you're just powing them down one after another. So we are so glad you're here. But let's quickly say, let's finish up with Tailwind. I know that you said that you do use Tailwind. Are there any other, what are the benefits of using Tailwind? We'll have this be our last. And then what are are there other tools out there that we can potentially use that could take the place of Tailwind?
I love Tailwind because when a long time ago in my business, I was using another scheduling program and it took me a long time. So when Tailwind came along, it sped up the time. So I look at things for efficiency and I look at things for what kind of data they're going to give me. So those two things have really sealed the deal for me. And because at every point, as Pinterest grows, Tailwind has listened to the needs of their community and added something in. And a part of this, I get the kind of the back end view into that because I know the people there and I know that they're trying to work really hard to solve these problems. And I think any good program is preemptive with their audience to help solve those programs. So I do love Tailwind. I think there's other programs out there that are approved. Pinterest has a list of them somewhere. I can't say what the link is right there, but it's called a approved marketing partner. And those are some other scheduling tools that I would use. I would stick with those 100% because you don't want to get into a situation where somebody is not an approved partner. Pinterest doesn't like their practices and then it goes away. So stick with those. I'm trying to think of what other major ones Tailwind is really it. Like we don't use any other programs besides some plugins we can add to our sites that would help ensure that the user pulls up the right image. There's several social plugins that are out there that can do this, both free and paid. But beyond that, for scheduling tools, I just kind of jump ship into Tailwind and kind of haven't looked back.
Excellent. Okay. And final question, and I'm going to give you a second to kind of come up with the answer while I do a couple of announcements, but it says some web consultants tell us to use tools like social warfare to hide the long pins in our posts, but others say we should have those long pins visible within the post. Do you see a performance difference between the two options? Think about that for 1 second. I'm going to actually, you know what? I don't want that to be our last question. Can you answer that one quickly? And then I am going to give you a last question.
Totally.
That's not my last
question. Okay. So I will say this, we are doing like a full data study with Pinch of Yum and Food Blogger Pro. And that's one of the questions we're going to be really digging into. I don't see a performance issue. I've never seen one in any of our clients. I say, put the image on the post, have it there, don't hide it, call it good. But if you don't like your Pinterest image and you don't want images with text, that would be the only reason I would hide it. Some people really care about their aesthetics. They don't like the text on their photographs. In that case, hide your image for Pinterest.
What we will say also is that if we're not seeing a performance difference, that's more real estate to scroll through. That's more duration time on your site. That's all of those things in your Google Analytics and your metrics that you're tracking, and more time for that sticky sidebar ad if they're on desktop, especially to regenerate, or your videos to play, or whatever it is that you're trying to get people to stay on your site longer for. It is more real estate on your site. So what I will say is our final question, and I will give you a second to make announcements while I have you ruminate. But what type of results have you seen from a coordinated Pinterest strategy in a successful implementation? I'll give you a second.
Yeah, I do need
one. All right, perfect. While we give Kate a moment to ruminate and to think on that last question, I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us this week. We are going to be back next week. Let me check the date on that to make sure that I get it right. Next Thursday is the 24th. I am going to have the man himself, Mr. Eric Hochberger, with me. We are going to talk all the things 2019 and moving forward with Mediavine, what we've got. We've got a lot of things on deck, a lot of really exciting things that we can't wait to tell you guys about. So please be with us next week for Teal Talk. I will have Eric with me, and we are going to blow your mind emoji where the little explosion thing happens with the mushroom cloud. That's what's going to be happening to you, even as much as has been happening today with Kate, because I know she's been making you blow the minds as well. So Kate, thank you so much for being with us. Please tell us a little bit of a success story, a great success story from people who've used Pinterest to their advantage.
Oh man, there's a lot. Like my head is kind of like a little bit exploding with what to do and that. But I think one of the things we've seen is that when people really figure out what their users like, they're able to create products. And I know I did a podcast with Lindsay from Cotter Crunch, and she has invested so much overtime into her site and being very targeted with like the healthy eating and anti-inflammation. And that's gone from like her growth and really targeting in on that to creating a product and then selling that. I like her story because it does span from starting very small and into growing into this way over the course of 3 years. Like this is not right away. This is a long-term investment of creating new pins, testing out short versus long, and then seeing, oh, my people really want this over and over again. So even back to the Alzheimer's thing, like creating guides for people. People are all about more information on a specific targeted topic. So I would say that hearing them and then also getting them to share on your behalf is going to be one of the most powerful things. Is as they grow to love you, they share for you, and that increases growth over time.
Where can people find you if they want to speak to you more and get more of this wealth of knowledge that you've been distributing?
Yes. So number one, we have a Facebook group that is very active, and you can just find that by going to simplepinmedia.com/Facebook. I'm in there a lot. I do lives. We're trying to do them once a month, but I would say the podcast is going to be a big one. That's your resource. That's literally your Pinterest encyclopedia. You're going to look through, find a topic, listen to that. So go there and then sign up for my Wednesday weekly email. You can see that at the top of the site. Every Wednesday, I give you like the most up-to-date stuff that we don't share anywhere else. So this is last minute things we're hearing from Pinterest, tips, trending topics. It's a long email. So grab your coffee Wednesday morning, gear up, read through it. It'll take you about 15 minutes, but you'll be armed with great up-to-date Pinterest information.
Kate, you have been great. There is no other way to put it. And I so appreciate you being with us this week. It's been a phenomenal hour.
You're so welcome. And thanks everybody for these great questions. They were amazing.
You guys are awesome. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Have a great weekend. And we will see you next week with Teal Talk with Eric Hochberger. I'm Jenny Guy. It is January 17th. Happy 2019, everybody. Have a great day.